Many wonder why there is so much suffering in the world. If God is good, why is there so much evil? The book of Genesis provides that answer. There, according to the Bible, is the origin of all evil. Was all this suffering just for eating a fruit? Who was the real culprit, Adam or Eve? From every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day that you eat from it, you shall surely die. This was God's phrase to Adam in Genesis chapter 2, 16 and 17. The woman who would later be called Eve did not yet exist in that dialogue. Much later, with the woman now living in Eden, another conversation destined to change the course of humanity was about to occur. The serpent, cunning and shrewd, approached Eve with a seemingly innocent question.
Is it true that God said you must not eat from any tree in the garden?
Eve, perhaps surprised by the serpent's ability to speak, responded by explaining God's instructions. They could eat from the fruit of the trees in the garden, but concerning the fruit of the tree that is in the middle of the garden, there was a clear commandment. Do not eat from it, nor touch it, otherwise you will die. Here, we already encounter the first problem. God never used the word touch. Could this be where we find the real culprit? But wait a moment. Eve was not in that initial conversation. Could it be that she exaggerated the story? Or was it Adam who out of fear said that the woman should not even touch the fruit? At this moment, the serpent employed its first technique of persuasion, the subtle distortion of God's words, introducing doubt.
You will not surely die,
she exclaimed. To understand why the serpent acted this way, you need read the book of Revelation 12 and 9. And the great dragon was thrown out, that ancient serpent, who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. We will tell this story in another video. The serpent continued, using the seduction of power and knowledge as bait. God knows that on the day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. This argument appealed to Eve's desire for wisdom and status, equal to that of God, a promise that went far beyond mere satisfaction of curiosity or taste. As Eve listened, likely many thoughts and emotions were going through her mind. The fruit, once just a mere component of the Eden landscape, now seemed irresistible. It was not only pleasing to the eyes, but also a symbol of wisdom and freedom. Determined, and perhaps already seduced by the vision of becoming like God, Eve reached out, picked the fruit, and bit into it. The taste was everything the serpent had promised, but with it came the immediate realization of her transgression. She then gave the fruit to Adam, who without hesitation also ate. Both of their eyes were opened, and they saw not only their nakedness, but also felt the overwhelming weight of guilt and fear. After the act of disobedience, the Garden of Eden, which until then had been a place of peace and perfect communion, began to fill with shadows. Adam and Eve, now aware of their nakedness, had hastily sewn fig leaf coverings in a vain attempt to hide their guilt. They, who had always eagerly awaited the sound of God's steps in the garden, now trembled with the fear of being found. It was then that, in the cool of the day, a gentle breeze heralded the presence of God walking in the garden. This was a usual time for communion, but on this day, the atmosphere was charged with a silent sorrow. God, whose omniscience already perceived the breach of harmony, called out to Adam with a voice mixing concern and sadness. Where are you? Adam, hearing God's voice, felt torn between the desire to appear as he always had and the impulse to hide due to his shame. With a heavy heart, he responded from his hiding spot among the trees. I heard your sound in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid. God then asked a question he already knew the answer to, but which needed to be spoken aloud, so that Adam would confront his own reality. Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you not to eat? He responded, The woman you gave to be with me, she gave me from the tree, and I ate. With these words, Adam not only confessed his act, but also shifted the responsibility to Eve, revealing another dark aspect that had entered the world, the evasion of personal responsibility. Eve, in turn, when confronted, pointed to the serpent. The serpent deceived me, and I ate. The chain of accusations was complete, showing how the initial disobedience had unfolded into a series of moral and spiritual failings that would affect not just them, but all of creation. After the exchange of accusations, the moment of judgment arrived. God, with a voice resonating both justice and sadness, began to pronounce the punishment. First, he addressed the serpent. Because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and all wild animals. You will crawl on your belly and eat dust all the days of your life. There is a tradition that suggests that the serpent, before being cursed, had legs and might have been a creature more similar to a reptile or a dragon. The punishment, which included the loss of the legs and the necessity to crawl on the belly. Turning to Eve, God explained the painful consequences her decision would entail. I will greatly increase your pains in childbearing. With pain, you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. These words not only predicted physical suffering, but also a shift in the power dynamics between men and women, a legacy of domination and conflict. For Adam, the punishment came in the form of a curse on the ground, which had previously provided him food without effort. Because of you, the ground is cursed. With pain, you will eat from it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return. Knowing the story, who do you consider to be the real culprit of the fall, Adam or Eve? Some current theologians place the greater responsibility for the fall on Adam. They say that, as the first human created and the one who directly received God's commandment, Adam had the primary responsibility to maintain the commandment and lead. Moreover, Adam tries to absolve himself of blame by pointing out that the fruit was given to him by Eve, which some see as an abdication of his responsibility. Adam and Eve were expelled from Eden, and God placed cherubim and a flaming sword that guarded the way to the tree of life, to ensure that they would not return to it. But who now guards the Garden of Eden after the expulsion of Adam and Eve? In the next video, we will explore the mystical guardians of Eden and the legends that surround them.